the matrix of nutritional supplementation is almost as confusing as the pharma companies now. The B vitamins, super important to feed your brain, where an inactive form of a vitamin becomes an active form, and it's specifically linked around the B vitamins.
Ash, we're going to talk about supplements. Very, very, very confusing market to a lot of people. First of all, I think, let's think about the outcomes, the 4 or 5 different aspects of our total bodily functioning, which we need to look at, and then think about supplements that can help that. So what would the 4 or 5 categories be that we...
Super. So just to a little bit before that, the whole concept of supplements is only a modern day problem. Your predecessors 1,000 years ago would never take supplements because everything they needed was in food. So the reason for supplements is because we have a food deficiency, a nutritional deficiency. We have to accept that because you can't have everything all the time. So nutritional supplementation is required. Then it comes to, well, what do you take? The matrix of nutritional supplementation is almost as confusing as the pharma companies now. Everything is out there and people are jumping from one to another. My view would be, again, look inward, look at your day. What is your day? And I would say 95% of us would say our day is a cerebral challenge, not a physical one. If you're a sports person and you were doing 8 hours training a day, your requirement of supplementation is going to be different to someone sitting in a 9-to-5 job in an office. Mm-hmm. So look at where you're sitting and look at where your energy is going. So cerebral energy versus physical energy will lead to a different supplement package. So let's look at the packages. How do you protect your brain? Well, you feed your brain. So the B vitamins, super important to feed your brain.
B what? B with a number?
B12, B9, B6, B5, all the what we could call the multivitamins of B.
Right.
It's important to remember, though, that there are better forms than others. So my advice would be to take the methylated group of these B vitamins.
Right. And what does that mean, methylated?
Methylated is a process that happens in your body where an inactive form of a vitamin becomes an active form, and it's specifically linked around the B vitamins, where an inactive form of a vitamin becomes an active form, and it's specifically linked around the B vitamins. And it's adding a carbon and 3 hydrogens to that molecule, and it becomes active. It's the functional bit.
So in a way that it's the right word, a non-methylated?
A methylated version.
No, that's in a way that a non-methylated one wouldn't work.
Absolutely correct.
Okay, so can you buy, or are we being prescribed non-methylated ones?
We are.
Which for many of us actually is not working?
Correct. Well, what we have is a lot of us have this mutation in certain genes. They're called the MTHFR gene or the COMT gene, where you do not have the right amount of enzyme to activate it. So at various degrees, you might not be able to activate 30% or 70% depending on that gene mutation. So it means that you're taking a supplement that's not going to work. More importantly, that supplement's going to take space up in the system so that the active form can't work.
Oh, right. So you got an example?
So for example, folic acid. We know folic acid's in a lot of the foods.
Folic acid being vitamin
B9.
Right.
And often in pregnancy, we're given folic acid to prevent neural tube defects. Now, folic acid does not exist in nature. It's synthetic. It's never been in nature. It was introduced into foods in the 80s, and we use it in certain conditions. So, for example, if you're on strong immunosuppressant drugs, you're given folic acid. But actually, the functional form is called methylfolate. So folic acid needs this little methylation process to make it active. Now, 50% of us have some form of mutation that's not happening to the correct degree. That folic acid is not functional. And there's implications for that. You can't make brain energy.
Right. Before you get on to that, so we are being given, I mean, large proportion of us are being given folic acid,
correct,
which is not methylated.
Correct.
And therefore, the chance of it doing its job is pretty slim.
In 30 to 50% of the population.
Okay.
Now, you could do a gene test, but why would you want to do a gene test? Surely the logic here.
So why
just take methylfolate?
Why we do?
Well, I think partly ignorance, partly not understanding the physiology. So it's just behavior that's stuck there. And there are certain countries that are looking to ban folic acid because it's not functional.
Okay.
So from a practical perspective, we need to be going on to the methylated B vitamins. and that will create mitochondrial energy, which is the currency that your cells breathe with. So B vitamins in the methylated form, very important.
Right. Okay, that's the first one.
That's your mitochondria. The other thing about your mitochondria is it needs certain other nutrients to help it work. So things like resveratrol, very powerful to help support the mitochondria. So this is your energy. Then it's your immune system. Your immune system also needs to be fed. Again, the B vitamins, vitamin C, zinc, and magnesium. These are the core pillars of nutrients that your immune system does. And we know that when people are down, their zinc levels might be disrupted, their magnesium levels might be disrupted because the body's using it. So feed your immune system, feed your mitochondria. And then the next thing is, these are things that help feed. We then need to look at the protection.
Right, so just stop on those then. So these are things we see on our shelves in the supermarket all the time, vitamin C, zinc, magnesium. What is the most effective way in terms of what we take being bioavailable to us of vitamin C, zinc, and magnesium?
Good. So again, it's a very important, crucial point you made, that if our guts aren't working properly, how much is actually truly getting in us? So if we want to mitigate against absorption issues or bioavailability in the practical world, we would probably try and go towards things like liposomal vitamin C. This is, rather than being based in water, it's based in fat, so you get a slow absorption going on over a period of time. So effectively more gets in the system. Vitamin D, very, very important. We didn't talk about that, but that's...
Can we come back to it in a second?
Yeah.
Because I just want to pause on magnesium.
Okay.
So I take magnesium in the morning, magnesium malate, and it's a pill. It's got some additional ingredients in it. One of them is silicon dioxide, which is an anti-caking agent. And I read up a lot on this sort of subject, as you can imagine. And I read that as you get older, it's a bit harder for your body to process silicon dioxide. Your kidneys sort of struggle with it. And in some people, that can lead to problems.
Yes.
So firstly, is that true? And secondly, is there then other compositions of these sort of pills, which are hard caked pills? Are there other sort of compositions that one can take?
Yeah. So we've got to remember there's the active form of magnesium and the bits that are around it to enable you to preserve it, to take it. Those bits the body doesn't like. It manages them, but then as time progresses, these toxic effects get bigger, number one, and B, the ability, as you said, to excrete them gets lower. So any form of, when you take a vitamin, don't just look at the vitamin compound, look at its absorption and look at what else is with it. So if there are compounds that are not natural, at the cost of the sell-by dates being less, go with those. And you'll see there's a number of products out there in reputable health food shops. I can't name any provided companies, but always look at what else is with it. And those with less, what I would call synthetic ingredients in them, are likely to have shorter shelf lives.
And therefore be actually better for you.
Absolutely. So buy less of them.
Yes.
Then go for something that has a very long shelf life.
Very interesting. 2027. Is that a long way?
That's pretty long. Yes. Yeah.
So I'll be looking for maybe a different formulation for this.
Yes.
Okay. We won't do this one, but I take this one, which I 20 years ago I was told I needed 2 new hips. 20 years ago, the consultant took the X-rays. I won't mention his name because he's actually well known. He said, "Oh yeah. So you've had a problem since birth with your hips, slightly deformed. We're going to do that one next month, and then we'll leave it 3 months. We do that one." I said, "I'll go away." I basically played golf, couldn't walk more than 2 holes, and the pain just stopped me. Another guy said, "This combination of glucosamine and chondroitin sometimes works with people." I think it was cartilage regeneration, whatever it was. I started taking them. That's 20 years ago, Ash, and I'm still walking fine.
And you're quite physical in your exercise routines.
Well, on the weekend, I on Saturday I walked about 15,000 steps in actually quite difficult walkways.
So this is very interesting because
I cycle a lot as well.
What you've demonstrated is that through no fault, the conventional system looks at the end point of a disorder and therefore reacts to that end point. So you had pain and they shortchanged. So the idea was replace it. Replace it with something that is not part of you, has potential risks of infections, etc. Now, if we went back and looked at processing, what is the micronutrition required in that area? What are the challenges that you've faced in that area? And looking at reducing the inflammatory processes through some of the things we're just talking about, feeding it correctly, which is what you're doing, chondroitin, collagen, and the other ingredient, the glucosamine. Glucosamine we used to give in the NHS and then it stopped some years ago. So the idea is that all of these things will help support the architecture of the problem. And the matrix that's leading to the problem. If you don't feed it, it's not going to get better. If you replace it, it's going to give you some short-term value. And you hope to continue to exercise at the same level as you are now for a long time.
Well, if anything, I'm actually more active.
Yeah. So the capability of regeneration was demonstrated by correct feeding and defending.
Yes. Okay, brilliant. I interrupted vitamin D. So is it vitamin D, vitamin D3, which is something I've got here?
Yes, absolutely. So first of all, vitamin
this is big, isn't it, vitamin D?
It is a monster. I would call it the miracle hormone in the next decade.
Right.
A lot of studies were done during COVID and its value in prevention of COVID, but also in treatment of COVID. And these are documented in papers, but it's an immune modulator. In other words, it fixes your immune system. And remember, your immune system protects you. So again, where is it of value? Well, historically, we've always thought about muscles and joints. No, everything. From your brain down to your toe, vitamin D will improve the immune system and therefore increase the functionality.
It should be free then.
It should be free. And also the dosing.
It's cheap as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it is cheap. And the dosing is not adequate because, again, when we do prevalence-based studies, we look at population medicine. When we look at precision medicine, the dosing should be more. And there's been lots of studies in Harvard showing that toxicity doesn't happen at what we think it does. And we're all suboptimal. There's the Coimbra protocols that were then published in PubMed about their safety and efficacy. This gentleman treats all autoimmune disease with vitamin D, just vitamin D.
Is that right?
Just vitamin D.
Okay. Can we look at this one? So I bought this one because I wanted something that I could just spread my tongue.
Yeah.
But it's got 1,000 things.
1,000 units, yeah. Yeah, 1,000 units. Now, historically, most would think that's reasonable. It is not. Most of the studies show that in a 12-month period, you should average at least 5,000 units a day.
Okay.
But if you're harboring an inflammatory condition, bearing in mind that's immune dysfunction, you should take more. Now, we tend to do a baseline blood test to make sure there's no abnormalities with calcium. And once we've done that, we would step up to an average of 5,000 units a day and more if you've got heart disease or an inflammatory condition.
And do you need to take it every day or could you take a lot once a month or what are the options?
Well, the vitamin D can be stored. So you can bring it in, it'll store and then release itself on demand. So for convenience, some people can take it weekly, some even take it monthly.
As an injection?
As an injection or a high-dose oral supplementation.
Okay, fine.
If you're taking oral versions, you've got to remember it's fat-soluble. And, so you will not be able to absorb it if it's not in some form of fat. So
fat, you mean, so take it with a fatty meal?
Dairy, avocado, olive oil.
At the same time?
At the same time, so it gets absorbed.
So when the box says take it before or after meals or with a meal, there's a very, very good reason for that.
Absolutely, yes. So you're not absorbing it if you're not taking fats in. So there was a study done on doctors in India where they gave one group vitamin D injections and the other group oral supplementation. In the first month, they were both at the same place. After month 3, the injection took over in terms of blood levels. And why? Because these doctors were busy. They were swigging their vitamin D down with a cup of coffee in the morning and it wasn't getting absorbed.
Yeah.
So it's not only the drug, as you said, it's how you take it too.
Yes. Okay, so we've covered a number of supplements.
So we've covered your mitochondria, your energy, we've covered your immune system, and then we're going into the protective modes. What is it that you need to protect yourself from, what you could take? well, we've now established inflammation is the root cause of everything. So we should look at taking natural anti-inflammatories. And there's plenty out there. Turmeric,
Okay.
one of them.
Turmeric's a big one. It's advertised everywhere.
Yes.
Every single supermarket in the land,
Yes.
now in its cold canter, has turmeric shots.
Yes.
You either buy a big pot which lasts you a week, or you just take, so what is it in turmeric that...
It's a natural anti-inflammatory agent. So it suppresses these inflammatory markers, interleukin-1, interleukin-6, TNF. These are all sort of triggers for inflammation.
Okay.
So it suppresses those.
There's lots of different types, lots of different formulations of turmeric on the market. There's one that comes in a little bottle with a sort of syringe thing. It's a bit thick and it gets sticky, and I didn't find it lasted very well in the bottle. There's pills you can take, which maybe have some of the issues you described earlier. You can get fresh turmeric and chop it up and put it in a shake yourself. You can buy the sort of powdered stuff that you'd use in cooking, sprinkle on your food. You can get the shots. There's always a residue at the bottom, which is the turmeric. You have to shake it up.
That is the turmeric, yes.
So is there any, maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe it's down to which one suits you. But is there any general guidance?
So
it's very, very hyperactive market at the moment.
Yes,
What would you say?
Absolutely. So I think we have to remember, we all know how our days are. If you have the patience and time, there's nothing better than the natural turmeric. It's the leaf, it's active, it's functional, but you need time and space. Outside that, in terms of absorption, the powdered versions or the liquid versions are quite good. The capsular versions, again, subject to the sell-by dates and their bioavailability, one needs to be mindful of. So generally speaking, those would be the best on the market. If you're going at the high end of absorption, there is a nanocell version, which is liposomal. In other words, again, it's in fat. They make the turmeric in tiny particles and you put it under your tongue and it gets absorbed right through the blood supply of your tongue.
Right.
So that's the highest bioavailability one.
Yeah, probably more expensive.
More expensive, yes. Yeah. But I think my view with everything is if it's going to be difficult and you're not going to do it, you're better off going for something that's going to work for you, even though it may be less optimal in terms of how much you're getting in.
But, if the choice is one less £15 pizza or an expensive formulation of turmeric, and one of them's going to save your life, the other one may make your life a little bit harder, maybe, a couple times a month you go for the turmeric. Yes. Not the pizza.
And more importantly, if you go for...
Is that being unkind?
It's not. But what you have to remember is when you do go down the route of micronutrition supplementation, anti-inflammatory protection, your need for the pizza won't be there anymore.
No.
So, we have to realize people are reactive to these carbs because they're inflamed. So removing the inflammation automatically removes the need for the pizza.
Yeah.
In fact, when you take the pizza, you feel rubbish. Yeah. The body will protest with you.
What you're talking about now will save people's lives, not just their life in terms of how long they live and how fewer things they'll have to cope with that will destroy their life, but the quality of life during that period will be better as well.
And look, I've come from convention for many, many years. I'm still in convention. And what I would say is that there is a drive to find a prescribing solution to everything.
Yeah.
And this is only 100 years. These solutions to our health have existed in nature forever because we've adapted in nature. So for me, this is really powerful, but I've also seen the outcome of these interventions. The quality of life is not there. We bought years, not a quality. And those last years are terrible for a lot of people. They can't move. They're inflamed. They go out of one hospital into another, into one outpatient specialist clinic to another. Their whole lives are dictated by taking 30 pills and where their hospital referrals are done. There's no quality. And with that, they stagnate. And we know that if you stagnate, the system falls even quicker for the things we mentioned. So we are spiraling out of control. And there is a solution. And I think we need to just change the emphasis into allowing our body to do its job by taking off the straitjackets of inflammation, by feeding the cell and not the stomach. And you'll be surprised what capabilities are there. you go back to more sort of rural tribes like the Maasai tribes or the Aboriginal tribes, you get 80, 90-year-olds still able to squat, eat on the floor, still function, still move. They're lean, they're happy, and they're joyful. And the problem we have here is that we underestimate the psychology. Once the brain gives up, the body will give up very soon after that.
Yeah, it just made my brain go cold. I go to the gym where John is, whom you know, and in the new regime, I've got a series of squats after another leg exercise. So I have to do 20 at a time, where I drop right down to the floor and come up. I mustn't bounce, so I come up and I do 20, then go onto the leg machine and come back to the squats. And then when I'm on the 98th, 99th, and the 100th, it actually pushes down on me. Sorry.
Unbelievable.
So I can't get up.
Incredible.
Yeah, so Ash, you've got an example of somebody who's got a particular set of circumstances which they have to deal with in terms of, lifestyle and so on.
Yeah. So, it's very easy to tell your patients, go and exercise, go and eat fruit and veg, and you'll be okay. It's kind of lip service, because unless we put it into context of their lives, they're not going to take that advice on board. They're going to feel failures. An example is exercise. So I have a patient who travels around the world, does a lot, and will not have the time for regular gym work. And we basically just put in a plan with him that would work with his lifestyle. So the advice was this: when you wake up in the morning, as soon as you wake up, you face the sun and you do 5 squats. And then you go into the bathroom and you put the tap on in readiness to brush your teeth, do 5 more squats. These are just natural squats, but with good posture. Then you brush your teeth, and then you do 5 squats. Then you go into the shower, you have a shower, you think about how much water you need and how long the shower should be. And each time you're focusing on your task, brushing teeth, drying, shower, etc., etc. But in between each of these, do 5 squats. And then when you get ready, break it down into 3 more sets of 5 squats. He came to see me 6 weeks later and said, my buttock muscles feel good. I can run up the stairs. And this is great. And he was doing something like 50 to 60 squats as part of his just getting ready exercise.
It cost him nothing in terms of time.
Well, actually, no, he told me it bought him about 10 more minutes. He was getting ready quicker, because what he realized was when he was brushing his teeth, his mind procrastinated into another direction about what he was doing. In the shower, his mind wandered.
Did he squat while he was doing his teeth?
No.
Right. Just let me interrupt a second, because what I've started to do, because I've got an electric toothbrush, they give you 4 lots of 30 seconds. Okay. They shake. So you do outside, inside, outside, inside. 4 lots, 30 seconds each. And the toothbrush tells you when to change. I do 10 squats for each of the 30 seconds.
There you go. Now,
which cost me
not cost you nothing. You are monotasking. You are actually meditating without realizing.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you may randomly do 8 brushes on one side, 4 on the other, depending on where your brain was.
Yeah.
So what he felt was that it homed him in. And not only that, 50, 60 squats. Now he's taken that to another level. So he's got his office like yours, and he's got a rowing machine ready, a few weights. And when he's working, he sets his alarm for every 40 minutes and he goes and does 3 minutes of rowing, or picks up some dumbbells. It is not taking a single minute out of his functionality.
Yeah.
It would normally be a random conversation or a cup of coffee. He's increased his muscle mass by 3 kilos. 3 kilos in a period of 6 weeks. And he's not taken a second out of his day. And he owns this in any hotel room in the world. Not the rowing, but the general principle. And he feels satisfied.
Amazing.
So we have to remember that we've got to bring our brain into control. We've got to realize that you don't have to be in gyms. You can do this as part of everything else. And the other important thing is to breathe. Breathing exercise is super important, as we discussed before.